we went over the basic traveling bear crawl, right? So now we're gonna further regress that a little bit more. One of the regressions we start with is just going up and keeping your knees as close as you can to the ground, hands over your shoulders, and just holding that right there. I'm looking for a back to be flat, not arched, not hollow. My back is flat. My belly button's in. I'm just trying to get, if I can get a half an inch on the ground, that's great. If not, this might be what most people look like starting out, really high off the ground. The lower I can get on the ground, the more I'm loading my knees, right? So that's version number one. Number two is traveling forward. You guys already know that one. Small steps forward, opposite hand, opposite foot, keeping my feet from traveling, from going too far forward, or my hands from going too far forward. Number three, I forgot what that one is.
Travel forward, I'm guessing it's travel backwards?
I think so, but I don't know there's something else written after that. Yeah, I mean, let's think about it as going backwards. Going backwards is a little bit more difficult for most people because they start reaching with their back leg a lot further. You gotta keep it in small steps to make somebody successful at it. If you keep it a big step on a leg and a small step with the arm, it's gonna get off balance real quick. All right, so let's go with backwards on that one, and then we'll go traveling box. So in this case, I think you did that one in your workout, yeah. So we'll go 3 steps of everything. So we're gonna start on a static hold. We're gonna back 1, 2, 3. I'm gonna go sideways 1, 2, 3. Then I'm gonna go forward 1, 2, 3. Then I'm gonna go sideways 1, 2, and 3. Right, so it's just a box. You can do a box around the mat. You can do a box around one of these black mats. You can do a box around a box. You can make your own box by saying how many steps you want in a box. Right, so it just depends on how big of a box you want to do. But you go in all different directions: forward, side, or back, side, forward, side. The sideways is tricky. You got to do small steps too. Very tricky. If you start doing any big steps on any of these, it'll start messing you up, especially the climb. Then we got bear crawl leg lifts. So all it is instead of traveling, we're taking our leg off and we're basically a tripod plank. That's all it really is. It's a tripod plank. Leg lifts, and it's loading up that quad a lot. Just taking that leg off and holding it for a second loads up my quad that is on the bottom a lot more. Nothing changes with my spine. I'm trying to keep that knee close to the ground. The further I'm off the ground, the more I'm trying to unload that leg. The closer to the ground, the more load I'm having on that leg, right? Bear crawl arm lift, so this becomes a lot more core focused now. So from here I can go a slight arm lift or a full arm lift, and I'm putting a lot of shoulder pressure and a lot of quad pressure. You see my hips wobbling side to side, and that's okay for now. I mean, I want to try not to wobble, but for me not to wobble, I would have to put my other arm in the middle, right? So I have a little bit more balance, right? You got bear crawl shoulder taps, just like a plank tap. You're gonna be in a static position, and you're gonna go tap the opposite shoulder. Right, trying to keep those hips from moving side to side. And you got bear crawl bird dog. So you're staying in a static position, and all you're gonna try and do is extend while keeping your knee close to the ground. A lot of pressure in that bottom leg, a ton. Without arching your back, obviously, just like any other bird dog. You don't have to fully extend for it to become a bird dog. You can only go as far as your form can stay in place, right? Questions on that? No? Kyria? Good? Okay, so let's go into anti-rotations. We're going to start with a seated anti-rotation hold. So let me grab a purple band. So what we're gonna do is, I'm gonna put this, oh thanks man, appreciate it. I'll move this mat a little bit more this way. So all it is I'm gonna sit down, I'm gonna make sure my feet are planted on the ground, I'm just gonna hold this. All right, so basically what I'm doing is I'm keeping my arms in front of my sternum. I'm trying to lock out my elbows. It's all, just like a regression would be the arms closer to the body. Regression would be arms locked out. It's making my joints work a lot harder. You can do the hold this direction. You can have it around one hand and hold, or for a more difficult variation, you can have it this direction. Okay, so both hands are holding onto the band. Usually we'll only do it a single band coming across the rack. As soon as you start seeing them twist a little bit, they're not doing the whole. So I want them to get, if that's the case, get the box a little bit closer, have them stay right in front of their hands, right in front of your sternum, right? That's a hold. Yep, exactly. So now we got. Oh, sorry. From here, we can also do chops, rotations. Okay, so static would be the first one. Chops would be up and down, right? So I'm keeping that in front of my line. If my line is here, I'm trying to get my hands to be in front of my line so I can do a chop, right? I can also do a rotation, so my hips stay in line, but I'm rotating as far as I can to the side without moving my hips around, right? So nothing changes. The arms, so like I said, regression would be arms bent, but the progression would be arms straight, and the hips don't move because it's seated on the box. Just the shoulders move if they need to, for the rotation especially. Okay, so then from there we go into standing, and the only thing that we can do now standing, we'll do all the same variations, but now we can add walking in and out, right? So in a standing version, I usually try to put this at the chest level. We're gonna start with our static variation. So knees bent, hips bent. I don't wanna lock out my joints, I wanna keep them bent. So I force not my joints to work, but my muscles to work on that one, right? So I'm here, I'm keeping my hands right in front of my sternum, whether I'd be this way or this way. Like I said, I like teaching this way from the beginning. From here, we can go into a chop, and the only thing that moves is my hands. Everything else stays still. I'm still keeping my knee bent and my hips bent. I don't want to be standing up straight doing this, right? Knees and hips bent. From here, I can go into rotation. It's just a lot harder to keep my hips even when I'm standing. From here, I can go into walks. Keep my hips and my hands in front of me. I'm trying not to let my hands twist me out of the way and back, right? And right back. So that's my walk in and out. Let's see. Yeah, that's good, it's good. We can do this with the anchor too, with the cable machine. It will just be really lightweight. So then from there we go into half kneel anti-rotation, all variations again, so half kneel. There's a version that's harder and easier, so you gotta make sure you remember that. I always have trouble with remembering which one is which, so I believe that the knee up on the inside would be easier than the knee up on the outside. I think this is a little bit harder than this. Hold on, let me just double check. I mean, I don't know right now. Let me pull it a little bit harder. The knee.
I could be totally wrong about
the knee. And once again, it might be what you're lacking, right? So somebody might think that one is harder than the other. It also depends. And this might be easier. You think this is easier or this is harder?
I think that's easier.
Okay, it might be easier that way.
It's like almost like a counter load.
Yeah, it might be easier because I put a lot more weight on my back leg. Yeah, so knee outside would be harder or easier than knee inside, right? It's just a different variation. Same thing goes for coaching the upper body. Hands in front of sternum, hands in front of your chest, hands in front of your face, whatever you want. Elbows straight or harder than elbows bent. You can do all your variations just like that. And then we go into our anti-rotation walkouts, walk-ins, banded. So we just did that. Yeah. So we just did that. That's just going forward side to side. And then we got inchworms. Why do we have inchworms? We shouldn't have inchworms. Forget about the inchworms in that one. We're going to go into rotational progression. So let's go over what a rotational progression is. There's a difference. Let me just go over chops and lifts. Chops is where the weight's coming from top to bottom. Lifts is where the weight's coming from bottom to top. So that's a big one because there's a lot of lifts and chop patterns that we use. I'm gonna have you move a little bit, Kyria, so I can use this thing. I'll show you both the band and the anchor, what that's gonna look like. Usually for any lift with the anchor or the cable, we use a rope, right? Let me just grab a rope real quick so I can show you guys. Okay, so what's the first one? What does it say? Anti-rotation chops? standing rotation chops. Okay, so we can do that with a band or with a cable. The band, I would be up here. I'll put it at the highest setting usually because I'm gonna have a lot more of the band. So I'm gonna be, same thing as I grab the anti-rotation chop, I'm gonna grab it usually like this on the band. So all I'm doing is I'm chopping here. I'm not gonna use my legs yet, okay? So I'm chopping just with my upper body, okay? Same thing it would look like. We can do two versions of this. We can do hands facing each other where you have a rope bent or straight rope, right? So in this case, it would be here, right? Or it could be here, depending on how it's labeled or how you prefer to do it. If it's not labeled, then you can choose what to do, right? I think some clients have a harder time with this one, honestly, but it does help you increase resistance when you start getting heavier and better at it. So that's the sacrifice that you take if you're trying to teach that one. So in terms of how you coach this, what we're gonna talk about is, okay, so what I want you to do is I'm gonna have your hips gonna be facing forward, your shoulders are gonna be facing towards where the band or the rope is coming from, and then they're gonna end facing away from where the band and the rope's coming from. You're gonna have your knees and hips slightly bent, unless that's a standing, that's a different story, that's gonna be legs locked out. But for now, athletic position is gonna be knees and hips slightly bent. I'm always gonna start a little bit further away from the band or the cable, right? Because I don't want to be here. It's going to hit me in the shoulder. If I'm here, I have a lot more range of motion before it hits me on the shoulder, right? Same thing goes with the cable, right? If I start here, it's going to hit me right away. If I start here, it's going to hit me a lot less, right? Let me think. Rotation, yeah. Okay, yeah, that's good for that. Questions on that? No? Okay, so then we go into, I'm gonna skip all the lifts. I'm gonna go for the chops first, okay? So I'm gonna go into the third one would be half kneel rotational chop. So banded or anchor. So this one doesn't matter anymore, right? We're gonna stay with this. It just changes. I'm gonna demonstrate now just with the rope, okay? So on a chop, you're gonna make sure that it's gonna be whatever knee is up. It's gonna be the closer knee to the wall on a chop. It'll be the opposite in a lift. Just remember that. On a chop, it's gonna be closer knee to the wall. It's gonna be up. All right, so on a chop, we're gonna be bringing it to, so we're gonna do, where the hell is it? Yeah, so we're gonna be here. There's two variations we can do here, right? We can do here, arms locked out most of the time, or another variation we teach is down to your chest and away. Right, so there's two variations here, right? So this is number one. Basically bring it to your chest and then extend away as you're rotating, or keep your hands in front of you and you're rotating the whole time through, okay? Most of the time it says it, which one it is, right? The one that you're working on bending and extending is a two-part movement, but it's eventually gonna become just one as you're going through it, right? This one's just a lot more dynamic in front of you, right? Same thing it looks like with the band, but the band doesn't change the grip ever. The band stays the same. We can't on the band. We would never do here extend. You would just go across the whole time, arms straight. So the band always stay arms straight, really, the whole time. That's my half kneel version, and then where are we? Okay. So then we got wood chops with a ball. So then with a ball, I can grab any ball. I usually start with a 6-pounder, and all we're gonna try and do is we're working both sides, right? So I'm going across, up and back. They're getting as much power as you can, up and back. On this one, I am gonna work on getting a little bit low to the ground. I'm bending my hips and knees, and I'm pushing all the way up. Bending my hips and knees at the bottom, extending my hips and knees at the top. Right, so I'm doing a half squat as I'm chopping through it. And then we got wood chop with the bandit. So basically this one's just a little bit more dynamic. At this point, we could do, this is also called like a dynamic rotational chop, where you would go, instead of just staying static with your legs, you just start using your legs a little bit more on this one as you're going across, right? So you use your legs, you're going across. Let me just check who's here. Oh, Heather's here. All right, and the same thing with the anchor. You have two versions of this. You can go to your chest and away and back, to your chest and away and back, or you can do arms straight. You can do arms straight, right? But I'm using my legs a little bit more. That's the only difference, right? And then we go into forearm plank on the floor is on the wrong side. We're gonna skip that. Loaded core. So then let's grab, let me grab a couple dumbbells. Beautiful. Feel good about the chops? Oh wait, I haven't gone over the lifts. I'm sorry. Let's go over the lifts. My bad. All right, so
Feel good about the chops.
yeah, good call. Okay, so the lift. What's the first variation of the lift? Standing? Okay, perfect. So you're gonna be here. You're gonna stand at 10 tall, and all you're doing is up, right? Chest and push away. Coming from the bottom, weights coming from the bottom, and I'm lifting, right? There's gonna be a lot more shoulders than that. What's the next variation? Half kneel, yep. So this time, like I said, this switches. My leg further from the wall is gonna be up. Further from wherever the anchor point's coming, I guess. Doesn't have to be the wall, but in our case, for the whole gym's the wall. So then, up and back down, right? I'm working on rotating my shoulders across, right? I'm rotating my shoulders across. I'm pushing all the way up, extending my elbows, back down, and back into extending my elbows. If somebody can't extend their elbows because it's on the way, get them a little bit further off, right? You can do, technically, does it say banded too? I believe it does. Yeah, so you can do the same thing banded, right? You can have a band from the bottom. It's just the bands usually slide up, so you just want to be careful with that. It's going to go this way, right? As you're going across. You only have one grip on the band, like we talked about, so the band grip's always going to be like this. Okay, so that's that one. We did wood chops, yeah, okay. That's the only difference, right? So from the bottom is lift, from the top is chop. Okay, so suitcase holds. So that one is just one-sided, right? So I'm gonna grab two dumbbells. So on a suitcase hold, we do these a lot for grip strength and for core strength. So on this, I'm just holding here. I wanna be able to basically slide a sheet of paper through here. I'm not holding like this, there's gonna be a lot of pressure on my shoulder. But I just wanna be able to have enough space to slide a sheet of paper. That's it. With my other arm, I can keep it in my side or I can keep it out. I like to keep it out and make sure they're feeling their side with it, right? I'm standing nice and tall, I'm flexing my butt cheeks, I'm squeezing my shoulder back, I'm not shrugging my shoulder, I'm also not slumping my shoulder, but I'm keeping a nice tall posture, right? So that's my suitcase hold. Then I can do the same thing traveling. So now I'm in this position, I'm just walking forward, right? Not letting that dumbbell or kettlebell swing, turning around wherever I get to my spot, and then coming right back up, getting all the reps on the one side, and then switching to the other side, right? But you gotta try, most people are gonna just go like this, and just try to walk with their dumbbell right next to their quad, trying to see if you can pull your shoulders back so you have enough space to slide a sheet of paper. That's what you're looking for, right? I'm sorry? What did you say? That's going to be next, yeah. So suitcase is one-handed only. Farmers would be two-handed, but the same exact thing. Yeah, exactly. So then, yeah, we got farmer's hold. The only difference between farmer's hold is just now two arms, right? So we're just still thinking about that same thing. We're able to slide a sheet of paper on both sides, hold, and then does it say farmer's walk?
Farmer's hold travel.
Oh, yeah, exactly. So then, same thing, walking forward, keeping a little bit of space between your leg and the dumbbell. And I'm keeping my posture nice and tall, shoulders down and back. I'm not overextending my back. I'm also not shrugging forward, leaning forward. I'm just trying to stay nice and tall in a neutral position. I'm walking slow. I'm not gonna run this thing. If my weights give out, I'm just gonna put them down to the side, right? Or if I see them start slipping, I'm gonna try to be there to grab it for them. That's the one thing you wanna make sure they don't hit their toe or anything like that. I always tell everybody, if you feel like you're gonna start to slip, you can tell me, or make sure you put them on the ground. But I don't want you to slip as you're walking with them. It's a big safety part of it. for either the suitcase or the farmers. So then we got suitcase hold with opposite leg. So you can do a marching or we can do a hold, right? So if I have my right arm on the weight, I'm gonna go up with the other arm and I can do a hold or I can go to a march, right? That's it. And the whole time here, I'm thinking about flexing. If I had the right leg down, I'm flexing my right butt cheek as I'm going up and down with my leg, right? The whole time. I don't wanna just have my other leg down. I wanna flex my butt cheek so that way I know I'm not arching my lower back, right? And then, so then we got dumbbell over hold march, slow march. So we can do 2 dumbbells on this case, and you would just be marching, right? So we're gonna go here. The hardest part for this is somebody has really poor shoulder mobility. So we're gonna try to keep those elbows locked out, elbows straight, and you're gonna march, right? Try to keep your elbows locked out. That's the main goal of this. If you start seeing them do this, it's gonna be way harder to keep with their elbows bent. Try to really force, hey, I want you to reach that ceiling with your hands and try to keep a neutral spine. People are gonna try to wanna arch their back. So that's why it's a little bit more difficult to do this one, right? That neutral spine is hard to keep while you're keeping your hands over your head. And then we got suitcase hold with overhead hold. So we got one hand down and one hand up, and we can walk like this. Right, or we can just hold it, but we can also walk like this. Same idea on my bottom arm. I have a slight space on my top arm. I'm trying to lock that elbow out and reach that ceiling as I'm walking back and forth. It's just a lot of balance, a lot of core work moving, right? Let me see. Any questions on that one? No?
What did you say about safety?
I want them, if they know they're gonna slip, they're giving up, don't keep pushing it. Let's stop early and we know we can let it down safely. Or tell me and I can pick it off from you. Like as I'm walking, I would go up to them and try to grab that weight from them as they're starting to slip off. That way it doesn't hit their toes, for example. So more advanced people, I just tell them, hey, like they know, so I don't have to tell them, but like just shove it over to the side if you feel like it's gonna come at, right? Away from your body for sure, don't let it drop underneath you. Okay, so now the explosive power progressions. We talked a little bit about the wood chopping. On the wood chopping, we're starting to use our legs. On the explosive one, I'm gonna start working about the pivoting, right? So you can still have your same pattern. You can have your arms together or arms separate from each other. But now we're gonna start thinking about explosiveness going up, right? So I'm gonna start real low. I'm gonna push up in one movement. Right, down low, push up, one movement. My back leg now starts pivoting a lot more, right? So I'm trying to get explosive. I'm coming back down slow, explosive, coming back down slow. Variation 1 would be chest extension. Variation 2, I'm in both hands. I'm extending all the way across, right? I'm just going more explosive at that point. That's a lift. The chop would be the same way. Right, I would go from the top and I would explode down and I'm still working on pivoting that back foot, rotating my whole body towards that front leg, right?